a light weight of about 23,000 pounds. The units weigh from 2,000 to approximately 4,000 pounds each. In our initial thinking, we are providing two 17-foot units to each car. Our later units, we expect to have a 35-foot unit, which will be comparable to a highway trailer vehicle. Another feature of this is that we can provide door-to-door service instead of being restricted to switching the car through some of the busy terminals.
This is certainly not standing still in any man's language. All of us are becoming accustomed to the growing importance of electronics to nearly every aspect of our lives. I suppose the railroad people have added numerous electronic devices to their list of equipment. We've already heard about the hotbox detector. Now, what else can you report in that connection, Mr. Folks?
In the electronic sorting of information, one of the greatest demands we presently have from our patrons is quick information on the location of their cars and shipments. This, in the past, has been manually processed, which naturally entails some delay. The new machine we are now engaged in installing, and which we expect to have in service in the next 2 months, will automatically process this data, thereby placing the information more quickly in the hands of our traffic representatives, who in turn can keep our patrons advised on movements of their cars. In connection with this installation, we are also equipping our Silvis Yard, which is our principal freight terminal adjacent to the Tri-Cities of Davenport, Rock Island, and Moline, with a very modern push-button control, electronically actuated switching machine. This means we'll improve our switching performance there, both from the feature of expediting the movement of cars and controlling speeds, which will avoid any overspeed impacts occurring in this retarder-equipped yard. These are only a few of the things we're thinking about and working on, but are some of those that are very close to accomplishment at this time.
Mr. Folks, anyone in charge of operations for a major railroad is, of course, concerned with an almost unlimited number of technical problems, most of these which are very vivid to you. A layman like myself wouldn't understand at all. But I would like to know, in broad terms, what you consider one of your chief concerns.
One of our problems in the railroad industry is the very fact that we are a mass transportation agency and have to accumulate mass in order to perform the service economically. By working closely between the operating and traffic departments, we are able to develop schedules which meet the shipper's needs and at the same time attain the maximum tonnage to move at a given time. That permits the operating department to assemble train units of reasonable tonnages, or otherwise, if we had to operate the trains with very light tonnage, our operating costs would become so high we could not continue to furnish that type of service. This requires continuous cooperation between the two departments in studying their needs and meeting their mutual goal.
When we talk about anything as complex as a modern railroad, things could get pretty involved. But actually, all of the technical problems, the electronic devices, the traffic and service operations, they all really come down in the final analysis to working with men and machines. If we may for a moment, Mr. Jenks, I'd like to ask you about the men who work for the Rock Island.
One of the most important things which we are doing right now is the matter of selection of personnel. All the railroads are going more and more to the colleges to get men with adequate collegiate training. Generally speaking, engineers are preferred, but we take men who've graduated in all the various disciplines. After a very careful selection program, we then put these men into a training course which takes from 1 to 2 years. which will lead them eventually to an official position. This training course is one of the most important things we are doing, in our opinion. We've had excellent results with it. I'll ask Mr. Conrad, the Vice President of Traffic, to describe the training course in the Traffic Department.
Our Traffic Department is essentially a cost-finding department in the realm of making our rates attractive for people to do business with us, as contrasted with our Sales and Service Department, which is set up throughout the United States at strategic locations to be in close proximity to where our shippers are located. Sales and Service Department must be staffed by men who are young, vigorous, alert, and well-educated, so as to comprehend the immediate needs of our patrons today and what that situation might develop into the future. The program about which Mr. Jenks discussed, as to the possibility of attracting more college men to the railroad ranks, has been a terrific benefit to the railroads. We do occasionally find men within the ranks who are capable of further advancement, and to that end, we have broadened our training program to include also those employees. To date, we have developed some very fine, high-quality, intelligent men for furtherance, and these men are presently promoted to the ranks of traffic officers in the field of cost and sales and service.
Well, that certainly is a nice thing for the college boys. I'm sure that a lot of young men who are listening right now will be very excited about your program. Now, Mr. Conrad, in the area you're responsible for, what developments can you report?
The faster freight schedules make it possible today for freight to move, for example, from New York to Los Angeles for 7th morning delivery, with correspondingly shorter times between Chicago and Los Angeles. The eastbound schedules have been shortened. The service is more absolute and more dependable and more regular and more sought for by all of the railroads throughout the nation to meet the ever-increasing competition of other forms of transportation.
Now, Mr. Jenks, a short question that may call for a long answer. Taking all of what you've told us, together with what Mr. Folks and Mr. Conrad have said, what does it all add up to?
The results of the increase in technical training of our employees, the results of our research and development work, the improvement in the quality of our officers, as well as the tools with which our people work, all results in one thing. It results in better service for the shipper, and it results in a better, more efficient performance as far as the operating costs of the railroad are concerned. Quite a few changes have been made in service as a result of all this. Right now, our trains are moving faster than they ever did. We're moving cars through yards much better than has been the case in the past. We're getting more efficient utilization of motive power in cars. And in short, we're doing a better job for the shipper. A great deal more remains to be done. And this technical progress, the improved training of employees, will all play a most important part in it.
As a leader in the railroad industry, Mr. Jenks, and also a pioneer in the improvement of many areas of that industry, I suppose it was only natural for you to join in another forward-looking enterprise, the Transportation Center at Northwestern University. You've already told us of your interest in the training of personnel for the railroads. Will you comment on the role of the Transportation Center in this respect?
One of the fine developments in this connection of training men for the industry is the Transportation Center at Northwestern University. I've been much interested in this from its first inception. We have a very excellent advisory board composed of some of the top people in the transportation industry, both rail and truck and barge, as well as some of the top traffic managers and the heads of a number of companies who supply the transportation industry. Also, we have representatives from the pipeline industry, as well as air. The Transportation Center has devised a very excellent program which will take care of the undergraduates at Northwestern and will also provide courses for graduate students. Then in January, they are starting another program, a 10-week course for junior and middle management officers in the transportation field. This looks very good to us, and we plan on sending a number of our younger officers to take this program. We think it will broaden them considerably and make them a lot better officers in the future.
Thank you, sir. With the guidance of men like yourself and the other members of the advisory committee, I'm sure the Transportation Center will be successful. We've been talking with Downing B. Jenks, who was the president of the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad, and with two of his assistants, E.E. Folks, Assistant Vice President for Operations, and Frank J. Conrad, Vice President in charge of traffic. If you've enjoyed this evening's show, I'm sure that you will equally enjoy tomorrow night's program. Now, this is Ken Mars inviting you to listen again tomorrow night when Northwestern University will give you another close-up look at tomorrow's transportation.
Tonight's program featured Northwestern University and its transportation center. Listen again tomorrow night at 9:35 p.m. for another report from your campus correspondent. This is NBC Radio,